So as everybody's coming in, I want to say good evening and thank you all for taking the time to participate in Congressman John Garamendi's Town Hall. Due to our incredible engagement tonight, I ask that everyone keep their questions under 1 minute. That way we can answer as many as possible. Now, if you want to ask the congressman a question, please type your question into the Q&A box, not the chat. Once again, to ask a question, please type it into the Q&A box, not the chat. Please ensure that your name is listed on your Zoom account so we can call on you. How it's going to work tonight, if we can answer your question, I will introduce your name and then you will receive a prompt to unmute your mic. Please follow that prompt because we are not able to unmute for you. So again, if you want to ask the congressman a question, please type it into the Q&A box. Once I introduce your name, you will receive a prompt to unmute your mic. Please follow the prompt because we are not able to unmute for you. We will try to answer as many questions as possible, but if we did not answer your question, please go to garamendi.house.gov/content and submit it there for a response. This and many other links will be provided to participants in the chat. You can also call any of our offices to record your comments with a member of our staff. Phone numbers can be found on our website at garamendi.house.gov. To keep up to date with information from our office, please follow the congressman on all his social media platforms. We are on Twitter, we are on Facebook, we are on Instagram, we are on YouTube, we are on Threads, and we are on Bluesky. Also be sure to follow the congressman weekly newsletter. We work hard on this, folks. In addition, this town hall will be posted in full on the congressman's YouTube channel tomorrow. So if you and your loved ones missed out, you can watch it all there. Also in the chat, you will see links to services that the congressman can provide to his constituents, such as helping out with benefits from federal agencies. Please know that our office is here to help. And once again, for other people coming into the chat right now, if you want to ask Congressman Garamendi a question, please type it into the Q&A box. If you hear me introduce your name, you will receive a prompt to unmute your mic. Please follow that prompt because we are not able to unmute you. Again, we want to thank everybody for their time and participation tonight. We would love to hear from you. Now, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Congressman John Garamendi for some short opening remarks.
Thank you, Cameron. Thank you very much for lining us all up, giving us the instructions on how to proceed. For all of you that are on now, thank you. We live in very, very troubling times, and I want to spend some time talking to you, answering your questions. I do know that all of you are concerned about this unauthorized, illegal war that Trump has plunged us into in Iran. I'll cover that briefly. I know your questions will pick up other pieces of it. There's also, everywhere I go, whomever I'm talking to in the district, there is concern about the next election and about Trump trying to win the next election in every wrong way. So we'll cover that issue. So let's get going. The war in Iran is absolutely wrong in every sense. It is extraordinarily expensive. The munitions that are being used place this nation in a very serious national security risk. Weapons and munitions that we need in Ukraine have been taken from Ukraine and brought in to be used at this war. The magazines, the arsenals are being drained to fight this unnecessary, illegal, and stupid war. It is not clear to me, and certainly not clear to others, as to why we're doing this. Trump's explanations change from morning to night and day to day. Now it's about keeping the Strait of Hormuz open. Well, it was open. It was free passage prior to Trump's war. And of course, Iran's not stupid. They know that they could, and indeed they did close the strait. They tried to do this some 25 years ago, and by putting in mines and the like, but they had the power to do it. And guess what? Trump attacked him. They closed the strait. My goodness. If you're a tennis player, advantage Iran. And that's their big leverage point. Did anybody talk about the nuclear issues? Well, they did at the start, and then the reason for the nuclear issue changed. And now we're back to the nuclear issue. They were about that close to gaining a compromise, negotiations with Iran to prevent Iran from ever having a nuclear weapon, to get back that highly enriched uranium, to take it away. About that close in the negotiations. And then Trump lost the war. And probably we're going to have to go back to where we were a month and a half ago. This is an extremely troublesome war. Our allies in Europe are going, what in the hell is Trump doing? Our allies in the Gulf states are now being attacked by Iran. They were not being attacked before this war, but they are now. And so they're looking at America and go, oh, great, you're a great ally. Look what you've managed to do. You've caused Iran to attack us. And it goes on and on and on. So our allies are backing away, and America is in trouble because of this war in many different ways. You may have questions that are specific. I'll be trying to answer them. Now with the upcoming election, everywhere I go, you are concerned about Trump and his allies in one way or another, trying to suppress the vote, trying to use the ICE agents at the polling places, trying to get their hands on the voting data, as they did in Georgia, by subpoenaing and getting their hands on that voting data, not to be used to eliminate the half a dozen or so individuals that are not properly on the voting rolls, but rather to use that data and information to suppress the vote. And undoubtedly you've heard about the SAVE Act, which is horrible. It may cause very significant number of voters across America and in California and in my district to have to re-register. For example, are you married? Are you the female in that marriage? Did you maintain your pre-marriage name, or did you take your husband's name? Patty took my name. And in the SAVE Act, it is probable, that she may have to re-register, go back and find her birth certificate and bring into the voter registration all of that information, the date of our marriage, the 60 years that we have been married, and all of those years using my name rather than her pre-marriage name. That may be for every spouse out there that has taken their husband's name, which is common. Less common now. Not all of my children chose to do that, but many, many have. In fact, the majority of the voters are likely to be 50 years and older, and it was common for those men and women in their marriage to take their husband's name and leave behind their earlier name. So the SAVE Act is still open. Trump is threatening to do absolutely no less legislation until he has the SAVE Act. The fact of the matter is, I think he'll have to drop that because there are key things that will be done. Right now, I'm going to end with this. We have to win the upcoming election. This is a government program. I'm not going to go any further than that, but I will tell you that it's a challenge for all of us. And when we return to Washington next Monday, we're going to take up, as Democrats, everything we can do to regain our constitutional power of the purse and the constitutional powers that we have. It's going to be a struggle because we don't yet have the votes. Now, with that, let's go to the questions. Cameron, lead us on.
Thank you, sir. So The first question of the night, Gene Walker, you have the privilege. And on deck, we have Dick Patterson. But Gene, you should be receiving a prompt to unmute. So, Gene, the floor is yours.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Gene.
Okay. Okay, wait a minute, excuse me. When will the 25th Amendment be used to remove Trump?
You know, I've spent a lot of time on that. I just 2 days ago joined about 60 of my colleagues and said it's time for an impeachment. This president said on day one that he would be a dictator, and he has continued to be a dictator for more than 444 days, and he'll continue on. And so it's time for impeachment. The 25th Amendment is not the best way to go here. First of all, it requires the cabinet, a majority of the cabinet, and in fact, I think it's a supermajority of the cabinet, to declare that the president is incapable of doing the job. Step one. Step two, that then comes to the Congress, and it takes a 2/3 vote of both the House and the Senate to confirm, to put the president aside using the 25th Amendment. That's a 2/3 vote. The impeachment is a majority vote. And so it's very clear that we have to go to the impeachment. It's useful to push the 25th Amendment. It puts the cabinet on notice that they have an obligation not just to sit and agree with everything Trump does, but rather to take on one of their constitutional responsibilities. But that's not the way we're going to do this. It'll be done through an impeachment. I've been hesitant to do this because Trump has been impeached twice, and we've come up one vote short in the Senate. And that was the leader, McConnell. He chose not to pass that vote. I suspect on his dying day, he will regret that he didn't vote for that impeachment. But here we are. So there you go. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Gene. Dick Patterson, you should be up next. And on deck is Gary Raymond.
Yeah,
Dick?
thank you. So the annual federal budget deficit is about $2 billion a year and appears to be unsustainable. I'd like to understand what you and the Congress are thinking about doing about that.
An excellent question. Actually, it's $2 trillion a year, not 2 billion. And it is a huge, huge problem. That problem has been before us for a long time. Certainly the COVID issue created a very significant increase in the deficit, but not nearly as much as Trump's big, ugly bill. He called it the big, beautiful bill. And it increased significantly military spending and about $170 billion a year for the Department of Homeland Security, of which 70 billion was specifically for ICE. Now, having said all of that, there was a massive continuation of the 2017 tax cuts that Trump pushed through in his first iteration as president. Those tax cuts had a little bit for the low-income people, a little bit for working Americans in the lower middle class, a little bit more for the middle class, and a huge, huge tax reduction for about 50 of America's biggest corporations. In fact, they don't pay taxes based upon that legislation. And for the super wealthy, about 80% of the tax cuts went to the super wealthy and to the corporations. That tax cut, together with the expenditure increases that were in that legislation, created a whopping $2 trillion a year increase in the deficit. Now, these are general numbers. The actual numbers are probably a little bit bigger. However, we need to be mindful that the big, ugly, beautiful, choose your word, bill has extended these massive tax cuts for the super wealthy. And the rest of us are going to wind up paying for it by significant reductions in benefits, specifically health care. A lot of discussion was spent on the cuts that went into the legislation for the. I'm going to come back to this. I'll come in a moment. The next big cut for benefits for America is the Medicaid program. Those cuts occur after the November election, but all of us are aware that this is going to be a whopping reduction in benefits for Americans. This is nursing homes. These are seniors. These are people that are not on insurance. They're going to have a whopping benefit cut in Medicaid. The other cuts, and this is what we were fighting for in the fall with the shutdown, we were simply saying that we're not going to allow the benefits that have been received through the program that we put in place in 2010. And this was the program that extended benefits to people across America. And so about 20 million Americans who are losing their benefits, and then comes the benefit cut for the Medicaid program. And so that is what the Republicans tried to do to balance the tax cuts that they provided for the super wealthy. It was not nearly enough to close the to close the extraordinary increase in the deficit. And so that's what we're facing. So what are we doing about it? Well, we refuse to go along with the extension of the benefits in the fall. And the Republicans were unwilling to work with us. And so there was a shutdown. Ultimately, the Republicans won that. And our team fought the good fight. But the 20 million Americans that were relying on those subsidies to purchase insurance are losing their insurance. Some of that was made up by the state of California, but not probably just a small percentage of it. The second hit is going to occur. We know it's going to happen after the election. Some of that is already in place with the Medi-Cal and the Medicare program. We will see what happens here. We're going to fight the fight, and we'll do the best we can. We don't have the votes. The Republicans control the Congress, they control the Senate, and we don't have the votes. Right now, the Republicans are talking about using a reconciliation program which bypasses the Senate filibuster, which requires 60 votes. And so it is probable that the Republicans will use the reconciliation program and push through significant cuts which have been proposed in the president's budget, which was issued 3 days ago. And it calls for a 10% cut across the board for every program except the military. And it calls for a $500 billion increase for the military, from $1 trillion to $1,500 billion. And that does not include the $200 billion they want to put on top of that to pay for Trump's Iran war. And my attitude is no way, no how. We will fight every single way we can to stop it. But the reconciliation program, if the Republicans do what they did before, and this was a year ago, ramming through reconciliation, all the things that I just talked about, all the cuts, all the tax cuts, all the benefit cuts, it is going to be a major, major problem for Americans. Things that we depend upon: education, transportation, healthcare, on and on. FEMA, emergency services, you name it, all of it. So we've got one hell of a fight out ahead of us, and we need you to be involved in all of this. Let's go to the next question. That was a rather lengthy answer, but I think all of us need to understand what we're faced with here.
And thank you, Congressman, for that explanation. Right now, we have Gary Raymond, and on deck, we have David Mazzara. Gary, you should receive a notification to unmute.
Yeah, I did. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'm going to modify my question just a little bit. I was wondering about what we can do about the war. Um, you kind of talked about that. And I also want to hear what your feelings about the Epstein files. But I was just wondering if we take over Congress in November, what chances are that we can rescind some of this stuff that Trump has done?
I'm going to take your last sentence and run with that. If the Democrats control Congress and the outcome of the November election is favorable to the Democrats, we then control the appropriations. All appropriations start in the House. Now, the Senate can try to figure out a way to bypass that, but they start in the House. And so we have the power of the purse. I talked to you about the $101,500,000,000,000 plus another 200. Hell no, we can stop that. We'll fight the fight between now and actually it's going to be January before we actually take control. The November election will set the stage for January. So that's on the immediately what we can do. There are other things that we will be able to do to hold Trump to account, including the Epstein files. There are some who believe this war was started to divert attention on the Epstein files. I hope that wasn't the case, but that's a possibility. But we'll be able to push the Epstein files. We'll be able to do hearings. We'll be able to subpoena. We'll be able to call to account all of the cabinet officials and hold them. We have the power of the purse. We have the power of a subpoena, and I will guarantee we will use it. I will become the ranking member. I'll become the chairman of the Readiness Subcommittee. And that $1,500,000,000,000, about 40% of that will wind up in the Readiness Committee accounts. And it's not going to be easy for the military. They've got to be held to account. It's okay. Enough of that. So we are running. I think I've covered most of this. If we take control of the House of Representatives, can we stop Trump? The answer is probably we can. I know that my colleagues, obviously, you've noticed I'm rather heated about all this. My colleagues on the Democratic side are just as determined as I am to hold Trump to account. And I will be able, on the Armed Services Committee, to use the subpoena power to deal with all of this extraordinarily expensive things that Trump and the military want to do. Hegseth is out of control. We'll be able to subpoena Hegseth. He has not appeared before the Armed Services Committee. We take back the House. I'll guarantee he'll be there day 1 and 2, and he'll be held to account on all of these issues. And so that's why this is really important. I think I've covered it. If I didn't, your turn.
All right. Thank you, Gary. Up right now is David Mazzara, and on deck is Chris Milene. Apologies if I mispronounced any of your names, but David, you should receive a notice to unmute.
Good to go. Thank you, Representative, for speaking literally directly to us. I'm a Vietnam vet, so military issues are something that I follow closely. And I am shocked that this war happened outside of the Constitution, that it's you guys that declare wars. And I'm wondering, there also, I think it was around the Nixon time that the War Powers Act was originally put into force, and it was used by Congress to hold down Reagan's use of troops in Trinidad. And I'm wondering why Congress, I know a minority part of it, but why you've dragged your feet and did not step up and invoke the War Powers Act to keep our troops from, I can also get into whether this is illegal orders or not, but why hasn't the War Powers Act been invoked? Is my question. Thank you.
You're absolutely correct in everything that you've said. You challenged me, you challenged my Democratic colleagues. You said, why haven't we used it? We don't have the votes. We have put the War Powers Act before Congress. There's a mechanism that we have used, and we will use it again. We did this last summer, and we put before Congress the War Powers Act and forced a vote. It's called a discharge petition. We used that last summer. We took the War Powers Act to the floor. We came up short. I think we were probably 4 or 5 votes short. I think we had 1 or 2 Republicans voting with us, but we didn't have the votes to really to make it useful. We're at that again. We have 2 discharge petitions that are now active. We're very, very close. We have to have a majority. We have to have the majority of the House, which requires us to have a handful of Republicans. All of the Democrats lined up on one of the war power discharge petitions. We've got another one going. We will push hard to get those majority and half a dozen Republicans to join us, put that on the floor and get that vote out. Now, the way the War Powers Act works, and it is in effect, it requires Congress to take action. It also requires the president to report to Congress after, I think it's 60 or 90 days, to report to Congress under the War Powers Act. And this was one of the things we tried to change last summer, and we're certainly going to try again. And that is the president does not have to come to Congress. He can use the War Powers Act to take action. Now, there's a question whether he is using the War Powers Act for Iran. He's never said he is. But I would suspect that as that deadline arrives, he would say, well, of course I was using the War Powers Act. Well, that'll be a legal question, and we'll probably wind up with some sort of a lawsuit that'll be resolved later. But we're going to try to rein, using the War Powers Act, that he must come to Congress immediately. That's not the current law. So he's off there. The time frame is arriving. We're going to push these legislations, the War Powers resolutions, when we return. Will we get Republicans? I hope so. We're working hard to get them. We get there, and then we'll try once again, as we did during the summer. It is imperative that we establish a new war powers law. It is too much of an opportunity for this president to begin a war. Iran's an example here, and to conduct it for now almost a month and a half without any congressional authority whatsoever. So we got to change the law. We got to hold them. We'll see what happens when we return. Will we get the Republicans? I hope so. Next question.
All right.
Oh, by the way, your understanding of the law and your interest in it is very, very important. You're a veteran. Be prepared for a 10% cut in veterans' benefits and a further evisceration of the staff at the Veterans Administration. What Trump did year one with the Doge and Elon Musk was simply to eviscerate the staff in every federal agency, including the Veterans Administration. Some have been rehired, but there is a short of staff in every organization, including the Veterans Administration. There will be an additional 10% cut if the president's budget is adopted by the Republicans, and that 10% cut will be further harming veterans such as you. It'll be a major brawl. We're going to have a huge fight, and you've got to be with us. Next question.
Thank you, sir, and thank you, David, for your question. Up right now is Chris Milne.
Chris Milne.
Chris Milne. I apologize for mispronouncing your name, sir.
All good.
No.
Just think Winnie the Pooh.
All right.
All
Well,
right,
hey, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. My question is a bit more local. Is there a plan to bring advanced manufacturing back to Solano and the sort of surrounding region? We've got plenty of space. We've got plenty of industrial parks. We've got plenty of opportunity, and we just don't seem to be able to attract industry. And we're actually losing industry. We lost a refinery. We lost a beer factory. With, what's going on? How can we get stuff come back in and get jobs and tax revenue?
Thank you. Thank you for bringing that issue up. It is, Trump has managed to divert all of our attention to wars and to Epstein files and on and on. However, we continue to work on a series of programs that are absolutely essential for the economic well-being and for the opportunity that everybody in the San Francisco Bay region, well, all of California and really across this nation, needs to have an opportunity to succeed. I want to bring back, and thank you for raising this question. We have been working now for 4 years on what we call the Interstate 80 Bio-Ag Research and Manufacturing Corridor. Consider University of California, San Francisco, biology, medical programs, UC Berkeley, biology, medical programs, also all of the programs on biotechnology, biomaterials, bioenergy. All of that research is being done at those universities and also at UC Davis, all of them on Interstate 80. So that's the research side of this. It is incredible what the research has done. Numerous startups are already blossoming in the Richmond, Alameda County and Contra Costa County, and some in the Sacramento around the and Solano and Yolo County around the University at Davis. It's incredible, and it is extremely possible if we are able to do this. 6 years ago, I wrote into the National Defense Authorization Plan a program called BioMade, so that the Department of Defense has, over the last 3 to 4 years, been funded. I continue to push money into the BioMade program at the Department of Defense so that the startups can get past the valley of death. And this is extremely important for Solano County. If you take a look at Vacaville, the intersection of the two freeways, there is what is already in place, but not blossoming as it could and should, a biomanufacturing area centered around the largest biopharmaceutical facility in the world, which is now under new ownership and is continuing to pursue biopharmaceuticals. Now you ask, why has more not been done? It's energy. PG&E is unable to supply the energy needed for a biomanufacturing facility that was hot to go. And it has been delayed for lack of energy. This is one of the things that we're working on, trying to make sure that PG&E is able to provide the energy for these systems. We do have the BioMade program that is available for small startup companies that need to get past the valley of death. One facility is a small facility is being put together in the Livermore area. We're looking at putting a larger facility probably in Yolo County, maybe Solano County, so that these startups can move beyond the lab and begin to produce energy, materials, biopharmaceuticals, whatever it is, in a sufficient volume that they have an opportunity. It is extremely exciting, and it's possible. And we know that we can do it. And so we'll continue to push money through the Department of Defense and through the Department of Energy and other areas. However, we've got a very serious tsunami coming at us. There's a big, and that's the 10% cut that Trump is proposing in his budget. Enough of that. Thank you for it. Thank you for allowing me to get back to something that is very, very positive. And I'm going to do another one here in a moment because this has been a very, very good day on other legislation beyond all of the war that's going on. Next question.
All right, thank you, sir. And thank you, Chris, for that very, very important question. Right now, Christine Stevens, you should be getting a prompt to unmute. And on deck is Angel Velez.
Hello, and thank you for being here with us. My question was, what can just normal, ordinary people like us do to try to control basically Trump's overreach? I mean, there's various things, demonstrations and things, but what kind of is the best thing we can do to do that?
Take to the streets. I had an absolutely wonderful Saturday. When was it? 2 Saturdays ago, maybe one. There were demonstrations in Contra Costa County. This was the No Kings Day. And across the nation, there were 1,200, 1,500 demonstrations across the nation. 2 of them I was able to attend, one in El Sobrante and another one in El Cerrito. Maybe a couple hundred people at both of them. And people were angry. They were determined. They were there on the streets. They carried their signs. And I had an opportunity to meet and greet and I don't know, maybe give a speech that told them next steps. The next step is to continue to protest. There's going to be another No Kings Day. I think it's been about a month out. The date has been, I think it's been set. And I'll join you on the street. Continue doing that. I know that my son and daughter-in-law, every Saturday, they're at the intersection of Highway 26 and Highway 12 in Angels Camp with maybe a half a dozen or a dozen of their friends protesting every Saturday. And you should do that also. Don't wait for the next No Kings Day. Do that. It all has an impact. Now, next step. Do you know anybody in, let's say Georgia? Do you have a relative in one of the contested states in the upcoming election? I'll bet you do. I bet you have a son or a daughter that's working in Chicago or maybe Omaha. Contact them. Tell them to get engaged and make sure they vote. I don't want to go any further down the line here, but you have power. All of you have power. And you have the opportunity to express that power, not only voting in the next election, but encouraging others to vote. Your relatives, your friends, your classmates, your sorority or fraternity brother located, I don't know, in Alaska. Major important election in Alaska. So get with it. I'm doing that everywhere I can, calling up my colleagues from long ago and saying, hey, are you engaged? Are you involved? And the answer is, yes, I am, and I need to do more. So next question.
Thank you, sir, and thank you, Christine. Up right now is Angel. Next up, we have David Laveau.
Hello, Congressman. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us. My question really is with the actions and rhetoric that are coming from Donald Trump right now. Have any of your Republican colleagues expressed concern about his actions? And furthermore, are any of them willing to go on the record and at least call him out for his actions. Obviously, we don't have the numbers for impeachment, let alone the 25th Amendment, but I'm hoping that there's at least enough of a groundswell from some Republicans to at least have him amend his actions. What are your thoughts on that?
This is my obligation. This is what I must do, and I have been doing it. The president has so demeaned the office that he was elected to. His language is outrageous. It's in many ways blasphemous. Easter. We're talking about Easter. We're talking about not only Easter, but we're talking about a major religious period for the Jews and for Muslims. And in that context of all of that, he issues the most outrageous and, in my view, blasphemous tweet. And he's going to wipe out a civilization that goes back 4,000 years. Go to my website, go to YouTube. I was on CNN 6 o'clock West Coast time yesterday in the run up to the 9 o'clock or the 9 o'clock deadline that Trump had placed. And I guess I said most of what I just repeated here. All of us have the obligation to simply say, this is not acceptable. The next president of the United States is going to have to rebuild the presidency. Trump is in the process of destroying it with his continuation of outrageous statements and even more outrageous action. Wars here and there, telling and the way he's treating our NATO allies and allies in the Gulf states. The rebuilding of the presidency will take a long time. And as we go into the presidential election season after November, we're going to have to keep in mind that the next president has got to have the personality and the determination to rebuild our presidency. We're going to have to play along in Congress, do our tasks, give the president, the next president, the support necessary to, for example, the NATO alliance, and to rebuild the alliances in the Pacific, Philippines, and others. It's an enormous task, and it starts with you and me. It starts with the kind of outrage that I think you possess with your question, and the kind of outrage that I have about what this man is doing to the presidency of the United States, basically dragging it into the sewer. And okay, we got our work cut out for us. And so everywhere we go, we need to hold him to account and to plead, literally plead, that he stop doing this. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. And thank you, Angel, for that question. Also, plugging, if you want to keep up to date with information from our office, please follow the Congressman on all his social media platforms. We are on Twitter. We are on Facebook. We are on Instagram. We are on YouTube. We are on Threads. And we are on Bluesky. Also, be sure to follow us as we send a weekly e-newsletter. So check your inboxes. Also plugging that this town hall in full will be posted tomorrow on YouTube. Also on our social media, you can find the clip of the Congressman's interview on CNN yesterday. But right now, we have David. You should be getting a notice to unmute. And after David is Sharon Sword. David, the floor should be yours now.
Thank you for hosting this town hall. It was good hearing about the local issues. My question is about Social Security. What's going to happen to it? DOGE came in, decimated, cut back the workforce, cut back staffing in the offices. They have a new computer system for scheduling that's not working. But there's approximately 82 more Social Security checks before the 22% cut comes in. And I'm I'm in the group that's my full retirement age was raised to 67. So we already lost out on the percentage going from 65 to 67. So I keep seeing cuts in my Social Security. So is it in Congress ballpark to sit down and come up with a solution? I mean, there's proposals out there, and you guys know what to do. So, but everything else distracts you.
Well, you're certainly right about the distractions, and Trump is distracting us all. Um, we have not had the opportunity to analyze in detail the Social Security and Medicare situation in the president's budget. We do know that there's a 10% across the board. That is almost certainly going to be staffing for the Social Security office. And as you correctly pointed out, the DOGE program did significantly reduce the staff at the Social Security and Medicare programs. Now, whether there are specific Social Security cuts that are being recommended by the president, I don't know yet. We've not had a chance to go into it. And frankly, we've not heard that there would be cuts in benefits. I am curious about what you said about your going to 67 and also the cut that you're taking. I am not sure that I am of the opinion that that's incorrect. So here's what I want you to do, and anybody else that is concerned about their Social Security benefits, Medicare benefits, or veterans benefits. My staff is very, very busy dealing with what we call constituent services. And if you or any other individual you know, or relative, or others in your associations have a concern about your benefit programs, come to my office, not personally, but contact my office, go to my website, and begin the process of allowing us to help you work through your benefits. It takes a time. You're going to have to be patient with us. First of all, we require you to give us the authority to contact the Social Security or the Medicare office or the Veterans Affairs. We cannot do it without your approval. And that takes a few days, actually a few weeks, to come back and forth to get that done. But we go to my website and we can work through these constituent service programs. Most of it is the programs that I just described: Social Security, Medicare. Medicaid is going to be a big one coming forward. As I've already described, the cuts are going to take place and they're going to be heavy. And we're going to get a lot of people that are going to be contacting us. What can be done? Well, maybe nothing. Maybe we can work our way through a specific problem. So contact us. Thank you for your question. You do raise some issues that I'm concerned about. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That is also in the chat as well, but please go to garamendi.house.gov/services. All right, up right now is Sharon Sword, and afterwards Cheryl Barkley. But Sharon, you should have the floor now.
Yeah, I think so. Hi, Congressman Garamendi. Thanks for doing the town hall. I am a retired federal employee, and I read recently that the current administration is trying to get a hold of the medical records of federal employees. And I'm wondering, what the heck is that about?
I am very, very concerned about this. Elon Musk and the Doge boys and girls that he hired, the first thing they did was to access every record in every one of the departments. And then, frankly, that was flat out illegal. To this day, we are not aware, but very, very concerned about where did those files go? Did they wind up in a non-government organization Did they wind up in a government organization that intends to use those files in some nefarious ways? I talked earlier about the voting files. They're still trying to collect those. Fortunately, those are controlled by the state, and most states are pushing back, and certainly California is. But access to those records was the very first thing that Trump and the Musk organization did. How they're going to use those is a very, very serious concern. And the medical records also. We do know that those medical records have been used in some places dealing with women's health issues. And it's been reported that those states that prohibit procedures for women's health may be gaining access to medical records of women that have obtained procedures in other states, even though they are residents of a state in which those procedures are illegal. Follow this closely. In fact, it was on the news today. And I think Texas is the principal trouble at the moment. So you have marched us into a very serious concern that I know my Democratic colleagues have, and I would suspect there are some Republicans that are also concerned, because our medical records, our personal medical records, have also quite possibly been taken. And so this is a very serious problem of privacy, of using these records in ways that are very, very troublesome. What are we going to do? We don't control the Congress. But by God, if we did, I'll guarantee you there'd be subpoenas flying left, right, and center trying to get to the bottom of this particular set of issues. But we're not there yet. Okay, next question.
All right, thank you so much. And since we are coming up on time, we have Cheryl Barkey. Cheryl, you will probably be our last question of the night. So Cheryl, you should be getting a prompt to unmute.
Yes. Hi, this is Cheryl, and it's actually my husband, Alan, that has the question, so I'll turn it over to him.
Yeah, hi, Congressman Garamendi. Thank you so much for all your work that you do. We appreciate it. The question I have is, what can we do? I mean, I think we spend too much time focusing on Trump, who is sort of untouchable, but he's been completely enabled by the Republicans in Congress who are afraid to do anything. How do we, what can be done to expose the corruption of them, because they're completely abdicating their power to control Trump, because they have, it's actually the responsibility of Congress to control him, which they are doing absolutely nothing. So how do we focus more on that? Because I think Trump is just the symptom.
I've talked about this a little. I'm going to really focus this down. I'm going to try to do it in a way that doesn't compromise this. This is the next election. And I've already said, you just got to get involved. Now, before the next election occurs, we need to understand why the Republicans are not holding Trump to account. And there's a word. Actually, there was a book published about Trump in his first administration, and the title of it is Fear, F-E-A-R. You might want to get a hold of that book because it basically lays out that Trump uses fear to dominate and to get his way. Case in point, he's going to wipe out a whole civilization, and he has the bombs to do it. Fear. Now, take that back to the Congress. The Republicans fear Donald Trump's involvement in their primaries. Most of the Republican primaries are in the days ahead, and Trump has about $150 million specifically to hold the Republicans in line. And if they step out of line, he will use that $150 million and all of his MAGA base to attack any Republican that steps out of line. Fear. Now, it's also physical. There is no doubt that all of us, Democrats and Republicans, live in a situation in which there is fear. Okay? All of us. The number of threats that we have received, Democrat and Republicans, has gone from a couple of thousand a year to more than 15, 16,000. And it continues to escalate. And Trump has been very, very clear. Step out of line and the MAGA base will come at you. And there's a physical piece to this. And there's certainly a heavy duty political piece. That $150 million fund that he has is going to get dumped on any Republican that steps out of line. Now, there's the upcoming November election. And the Republicans not stepping out of line are going to be held to account for allowing Trump to continue to do all the things they do. And there will be hundreds and probably 1,000 votes in which they will be voting in tandem with the president. And I'll guarantee you that they will have a day of fear in the November election, that they may be losing their job because of their fealty to Trump. I'm going to let it go at that. Now, I'm going to take up another issue. Earlier today at 11 o'clock, we did a press conference on a piece of work that my staff and I have been doing for the last 6 years, since 2020. In 2020, we knew that there was a housing crisis in America and a real serious housing crisis in Northern California, well, in California specifically. We began working on the principal federal program to support low-income housing construction and support for renters who could not afford the existing low-income housing, and for those low-income housing facilities that exist but are run down, that have not been maintained. And this was a program that dates back to 1990. And it was last authorized in 1994. Now, a whole lot of things have changed since 1994. I've been around through all of this, but this housing crisis has continued. The Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, Housing and Urban Development, has this specific responsibility in the federal government, although it too has been gutted by Trump, responsibility for low-income housing programs. And these are grant programs so that communities could go to HUD and seek a grant to build low-income housing. It turns out that in Contra Costa and Solano counties, which I now have the pleasure and the challenge of representing, there are numerous grassroots organizations that are prepared to build low-income housing. They have the land, or they want to upgrade low-income housing in a certain number of blocks, for example, in Richmond. So this morning, we had the opportunity to put aside all of this negative stuff that have really consumed us in this conversation and say, hey, we have a major piece of legislation that has been passed by the House of Representatives several months ago and now passed the Senate. And it includes this upgrade and advancement for the Department of Housing and Urban Development to provide grants to multiple programs in this region. There are men and women and organizations out there, nonprofits and others that are ready to build housing. They don't have the money. This piece of legislation will provide the opportunity for the money to be available. Now, we're going to have the appropriation. I understand that. But the authorization, this legislation that is, I'm focusing on one very, very important piece of it, but the totality of the legislation is specifically to advance housing programs across this nation, not just low income and moderate income housing, but to provide, but to get for the federal government to get out of the way, for the federal government to get in the way to advance these housing programs. It's called the ROAD Act, the Road to Housing, ROAD. It's on our website. Go for it. Look at it. It is really, really good. And it's taken a long time for my staff and I. Let's see, 2020. This is 2026. 5.5 years. Every year we've worked on it. And finally, we caught the tide. Because across this nation, every community has a housing problem. And the road to housing is it includes all of the things that need to be done for the federal government to advance housing. And the HOME Act, which has specifically been in place since 1990, but not upgraded since 1994, is upgraded and provides the authorization for more than $5.3 billion to be available through an appropriation process. Now, I've given you the bad news on appropriations, but we're going to push back. I think the American public has had it with Trump, had it with the cuts, and sure as hell doesn't want to spend $1.5 trillion for the military and another $200 billion for Trump's war. The public doesn't want that, and I sure as hell don't want it. So we're going to have the fight in our hands. I need you. I need you on the streets. I need you to contact your friends around California and around the nation and get them engaged and get them involved. Do what you're doing today. Get involved in town halls. Contact us. Contact the representatives and let them know. Let me know. Let my colleagues, 53 of us in California, Democrats and Republicans. If you're not mad as hell, well, I am. Join the campaign. Push us. Make us do our work, Democrat and Republicans. Okay. Thank you for giving me the time to talk about something that's really, really good that's actually happening. And we're going to put it on Trump's desk, and I'll bet he'll sign it. We'll see. Thank you so very much for the time. Contact us. Go to our website. Most everything that I've talked about is on the website. We'll continue with our weekly emails and trying our best to keep you informed. Thank you for the time. Thank you for your questions. It's been a really good way to spend the evening and a really good way to spend the money talking about the HOME Act and the road to homes. So thank you so very much. Have a great time and carry on. Never, never give up. Thank you.